All right. This one stings a little bit, and I have to admit, I was duped by Clemson. I thought that after the Georgia game that they had turned things around and that their offense has been looking much better. I thought that they had started to trust Cade a little bit more to do his thing and push it down the field. And I thought that even though that they were playing inferior competition, that they had righted the ship a little bit. It turns out that's not the case. And it turns out that the Clemson team that we are seeing right now and that we just saw versus Louisville is really all that it is. It's just an average team in the ACC, maybe a little bit above average, but they are not a national contender like we are used to them seeing. Now, there's so many people that are going to be like, yeah, well, we've seen this, like we've known this, we've seen this coming. And you're probably right. And I think this is really one of the first times where it's like, because last year was a disaster. And I thought coming into this year that actually they really wouldn't be all that great. And then we started to see them turn it around after the Georgia game. Because the Georgia game happened, and I was like, all right, back same old Clemson, really not going to be much. And then they started rattling off win after win after win, and they were winning emphatically. And they were crushing these other teams. But it turns out those teams were just weak and inferior competition, and no one really had a pulse to challenge Clemson and to challenge the athletes. What was really the most disheartening thing about this game against Louisville that Clemson lost was it looked like they had just completely abandoned what they had done the rest of the season offensively and reverted back to what we had saw what their offense was doing the past 3 years, which is like try to establish a run game, which is good, but then also your pass game is just short, quick screens that doesn't really move the ball. And they just don't have the guys to do that. And they were trusting Cade and they were trusting this offense before, and they were successful and they were having explosive plays. But they were not trusting Cade and they were not trusting the rest of this offense to do so. And it really is a mark on Clemson right now as to like where they are in terms of a program. And they're not where they really should be in terms of what their standard is and how successful that they could be, especially in a league that is very, very winnable. And really outside of Miami, who also shows vulnerability, this league is very gettable. And Clemson should be the ones taking the bull by the horns in this league. And they have the best roster in the league to do this or in the conference. And they are just not up to snuff. And the Georgia game where they were like kind of hanging tight in the first half and then got blown out the second half. I think the second half is more of an indictment of where we are with Clemson than 3-point game or whatever it was in the first half. But Louisville shouldn't be coming into Death Valley and do that to Clemson. So I'm not sure where Clemson goes from here, to be honest, because they've been pretty unsuccessful in recruiting in the 2025 class. They lost their quarterback, their one and only quarterback, and they didn't have a quarterback the year before, so I don't know what they're going to do for quarterback. They have to go to the transfer portal, or they need to grab another quarterback late in the 2025 class, because I don't know what they're going to do. Like after Cade leaves this year, you have Chris Vizina, who has not shown anything special. Like we'll be seeing him in games and we'll be seeing him in spring games. And then you have Pearman, who's like a walk-on. Like, is that going to be your guy? Because you didn't recruit anyone in the 2024 class, and your 2025 class guy just decommitted. So what they have a serious hole to fill at quarterback moving forward. And the recruiting class that they had, they brought in, I think they had around like 20 guys for their summer visits, and only like 2 of them or a handful of them have committed from them. This is not a recruiting class that you can really hang your hat on. They had some guys that they brought in this year who looked to be difference makers in TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, and some of those guys, you really got to hold on to them. You got to pay up to keep them, because if they see where the ship is going, they might jump off, and that could just be the Titanic, where this ship is going to crash if you lose some of these big time guys that you had just brought in. So we'll see what happens, but they're in a really rough position right now, and they don't have an easy schedule left. They got South Carolina at the end of the year, who is looking great. They have Virginia Tech this weekend. They got Pitt left. Like, they have a pretty hard schedule left. There are losses to be had left on this schedule. So you do have to have faith in Dabo Swinney if you're a Clemson fan, because he's brought you success and he's figured out how to navigate the waters before, but he just seems to be not able to navigate the waters anymore and not able to figure out what he wants to, or how to be successful in this new age of college football. So we'll see what the rest of the season brings, but some dark times for Clemson right now. Follow Big Body Ball CFB on all socials.